Hey everybody, it's Marty the JavaScript Party. My buddy Rhett. I got her this kind of different. We have a bunch of different kinds of nets. This one's a lot of work because I don't know what it's called, but it the shell is really hard. It's way too hard for her beak. She has a fairly small beak compared to like the big green ones, the big macaws and those. Big macaw cracked that right open. She can't quite crack this, but so I cracked it and I removed part of it. And now I'm going to give it to her. She likes that. And this should keep her busy for a little bit. There you go, buddy. She was very excited when she saw me working on that because they're a lot of work. And actually, cracking nuts is a bit of a. It's kind of one of those things where, like, if you work on it for a while, you get good at it, and then you never have to work at it again for some reason. You'd like upload it. You upload that skill, and now you have it. I found that to be the case with a lot of things where you where Rubik's Cube's a perfect example. I wanted to self-learn a Rubik's Cube, not take a single tutorial or anything, just get a Rubik's Cube and just do it. I had tried it a lot when I was like 12 and 13 years old, and then I decided at like 50 I was going to learn how to do a Rubik's Cube. And my wife would watch me spend hours and hours and hours every day trying to figure out how to get to the next step and understand every little thing and all that. And so now I can solve a Rubik's Cube. There are definitely like times where I see certain patterns and then I just muscle memory it. And I don't actually have the mental, like, I'm not physically imagining where everything was. Now, the first time when I innovated and created that, I had all those things in my head. I was like, okay, so if I move this here, then that moves there, and then these move there. And came up with that. But then I got to the point where, oh, okay, I see this. And then I lost this sort of this causes that, causes this, causes that thing. And you get a lot of that in coding too. But anyway, so I was coding away, everything looked good. And I was just like, okay, let me add a viz. Okay, let me add another one. Oh, shoot, I forgot to add the viz. For some reason, that click didn't work. Okay, boom. And then eventually I was like, man, I think there's a bug. So I was about to commit all of this stuff. I had the unit tests all done, end-to-end tests all done, everything. I was about to unit test, and I was like, let me check this. And sure enough, there's a bug. Basically, whatever the last one that gets clicked, it appears. This is my guess. Whatever the last one that gets clicked is never gets moved. So there's some, and usually when that happens, then it's something they used to call, like when I first, or not when I first started, but I would say between 2000 and 2010, like there was this sort of generic rule: never have race conditions. And a race condition is like where something has to finish before something else, but then like if it doesn't, then it doesn't work. And that's exactly what I think we have here is a race condition, right? There's a race, and whatever is doing the drawing. So you don't see it the first time because there's no moving on the first one. But whatever does the drawing, the second one gets created before the first. So my guess is the drawing is happening before the second one gets created. So there's a race. The race was the first one. It needs to be created and then it needs to be drawn. If that race doesn't happen, well, it used to be that they were like never have race conditions, and no one ever said, okay, by the way, that is a great rule, but it's not feasible. The way modern code is, you always have race conditions, and you're gonna have to write code. And sometimes, like as you move from one, like you might go from local to like dev. Like you may have a remote dev, and then things don't work. They worked locally, but they didn't work on dev. And usually it's because something is slower. And many times it's the API comes in slower when it's on dev than when it's local. So anyways, I think I have some sort of race condition here that changed. The winner of the race changed when I moved the code from into the component. That's my guess. So it's like timing's changed because I changed the architecture of the component of the system. And now I have to write some code to accommodate that timing change. And a lot of times the solution will be like something like add a wait or add a delay a timeout or something like that. If you can avoid that, that's not always possible to avoid it, but if you can avoid it, you should avoid that. Normally when you start adding time like that, you end up going, oh, well, okay, so now I need to add a little bit more time. Now I need to add a little bit more time. And then you have all kinds of things waiting throughout the whole application. It's just, it's sort of one of those like necessary evil, I guess. Evil's not, but it's like sort of one of those things where it's absolutely necessary sometimes. But if you do it, you don't get to do. It's kind of like a joke or a wild card. You don't get, if you do it too much, it sort of ruins everything. So, anyways, so we're kind of changing gears. So we got our our end to end that will test this working yesterday, and it's broken, and we did that. So now I'm going to go to my package, and I'm just going to close everything else and sort of get a fresh start. Close all, close others. And one of the side effects of going to the package and then clicking this up here is it kind of puts you into the right directory. Puts you into the top directory. Okay, so we know we don't want, and then you can just start closing things. So we know we don't want to be in Cypress. We know we want to be in source, and we probably want to be in components, because I think if we look at app HTML, see, nothing really happens in here, and nothing really happens here. And actually, it looks like we have a ton of stuff we don't even need. And it's very tempting to me. Normally at this point, I would, 99 times out of 100, almost every single time, I would, I can't tell if my eyes are just blurry. My eyes are kind of blurry today. Or if that's dirty. I think that was dirty. But for some reason, I woke up this morning and everything's just a bit blurry. But anyways, 99 times out of 10, this would be the time to kind of start removing stuff that you're not using. The downside is, the problem with that is, this is the one scenario where I don't do that, when it's already broken. If it's currently broken, I don't just remove stuff that don't seem to be used anymore. And that's just because it's broken, and I've had bad experiences, not like traumatic experiences or anything like that, but just like negative outcomes from removing stuff while it's broken. It's better to kind of do that. Ideally, it's best to like make a commit with everything working with this stuff, and then like the best, most bulletproof way to do this, and then start deleting things, and then run your tests to make sure everything works. But I gave you a good nut, girl. Ideally, that is the way to do that. But usually I'll skip that step. If it's not broken, I'll just start removing things and assume everything's going to be fine. But so everything's happening in this app custom layout. So I will say that I have a vague idea of what might be going on here. And a lot of developers get crippled when they're in this mindset, when they're like, I don't know what's going on and all that. They start to have a mental sort of shutdown situation until things come together. It's very stressful. You really need to get to where that doesn't bother you like that. But that is much easier said than done. So it looks like we call this ST render. So this, if I remember correctly, we literally just lifted and shifted this code, and it was just like this. But for some reason, this exact same code doesn't work out. And I feel like in this setup DOM visualizations, there was a timeout but it was in the actual app. Now I think we have the timeout. Go to the definition. See, now the timeout's no longer in the app. So it's possible. Yeah. So I think that might be the thing that changed. And so the question is like, I feel like this set timeout should not be here, but it should be. I think it should be in the component. And that's just a gut feeling. Like, this thing's being created and it's doing the timeout. And since it's not inside the actual component, it's not, the component isn't, what was happening is basically the actual DOM component was being created after the, like this DOM, these things as objects existed before the DOM component existed. I think is what was happening before. So I wonder, do we have a console log error?
You ready? Love you.
It seems like we should have a console log error, but maybe not. Maybe because maybe the array is actually empty.
What you got red? Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so what I'm curious about here is what the count is. And I kind of like talk like like some sort of authority or something like that. But really, honestly, more times than not, I'm actually trying to understand things by talking like it's an authority. So like I'm kind of talking out loud in one voice, and then inside my mind, sort of like the teacher is talking, but inside of me there's also a student, and the student is listening. And sometimes the teacher is just wrong. Inspect console. So we expect it to be 1 when I add, but it's 0. Now we expect it to be 2, but it's 1. Okay, so we really, I don't think this needs to be here. I don't think this makes any difference at all, but let's find out for sure. So it didn't make any difference, right? So let's see if we add our third one. Yeah, see. So basically it's like that set timeout never even happened. And I think what we want is for that set timeout to happen in the actual component. And I've never really sort of caught that before. That where the set timeout happens, as whether it's in a component or whether it's in the service, matters. So that's a very new sort of idea that the teacher is trying to figure out. You know, like, it seems like maybe if I do this, which I believe will then cause another sort of issue in that I probably will lose some unit test coverage. Yep. Yeah, so basically that is something I never really realized. I never had time to sit down and sort of observe. Like it was just like I would just try 20 different things and wait for it to start working, and once it worked, just moving set timeouts out. And I would probably even if I, depending on how much of a hurry I'm in, I might even like leave all the set timeouts in all the different places they are, which is just a terrible, terrible decision to make. Unfortunately, though, you find yourself in a position where you kind of have to make stupid decisions, just because of timing. Like if we were like, where I find myself in like under a lot of duress like this will be like if somebody else's code is broken and we're trying to figure out what's broken. And they're just freaking out. It is very difficult to get them to now slow down and say, okay, where don't we need set timeouts? Where are they not necessary? But I honestly had no idea. I had kind of vaguely remembered moving the set timeouts out of the services and into the components, sometimes having good results just from experience, but I had never really been able to just sit down and sort of analyze what's going on. But basically what's happening is this constructor needs to, I think the set timeout needs to happen in the constructor and inside of this thing, not in the service itself. So my guess is what's happening is the code is running in the service, the set timeout is happening, and then it's continuing with other code, and it's that other code that is continuing that we actually wanted to run. But now that other code, because there's a bunch of code. See, like if you just look at this code, you would think, okay, we're done. All the code's done running. No, there's a whole crap load of code that runs after this that we don't know about, that we don't need to know about until we do. And we just don't understand, and I definitely don't understand it. So let's just make sure this works again. Okay, so now I think the obvious thing is we need to run our unit test. I mean our end-to-end test. Run Cypress and open. So this is the application, and this is the command you want it to give that application. I think that's a good way to look at that. Now I would say there's an 85% chance that that end-to-end test will now pass. I think there's a possibility it won't pass, and if it doesn't pass, it would be maybe because left wasn't the right thing property to go after, or it's possible that there's like a timing issue. Those would be my two best guesses, but it could be something else. Okay, so here's our new test. Drum roll, please. Voila! All right, so we have got that bug. Oh no. Okay, so it failed. Left. It wanted it to be 200. Does this tell me? Did I misspell left? That's how bad my freaking eyes are right now. I feel like that might not even be the right property. Okay. What? This is unsaved. Oh, because all I did was did some formatting. So here we go. We're going to look in here and see what my spacing thing is. Okay, that's definitely spelled right. Should have CSS. What's up, man?
Hey.
Oh, you're just playing with the dog?
Yeah, it's something.
Okay, so it is upset that this doesn't have an... So that's one thing I do like about... but never... Oh, expected to find element 2. Oh, did I get the wrong... Is the first one element 0 maybe? Was this an index issue? 1? Maybe the very first one is element 0. Okay, yeah, so this was that index. So basically the second one is element 1, not element 2. See, now it clearly reads this like expected CSS property. I can read that. For some reason, the red one was a bit blurry for me. Okay, so that's good. So now the big question mark I have is, let's go ahead and kill this one. The big question mark I have is are the unit tests for visualization for let me close this up again, close others over here, and we want to go back into this, and we want to go to the unit tests and f describe. Do we get 100? Well, do we get 100 period? I guess that I'm curious about that. npm run test. And do all the unit tests still pass? That's another good question. But I think my main takeaway, and I'm like 65, 75% confident is that you, if you're doing a timeout in order to get a DOM element, in order to get the system, put the system in a position where it's going to give the system time for a DOM element to render, you need to do that at the component. It probably won't work if you try to do that in the service. And like I said, I'm not super confident in that, but I think that that's the way it works. Okay, so all the unit tests are passing. So that is step one. Step two is, do we have 100% coverage on all unit tests? And we'll drag that over here. Yep, we have 100%. And then we want if the component viz gets 100%. Let's see. And I don't know if you guys remember, but we were having problems with having to restart to get it to recognize when I made things to F before, and now we don't. Code's just acting different. Code acted one way, now it's acting a different way. Same code. That is just a reality that we have got to figure. I mean, that you just have to come to grips with in modern software development. Things just don't work the way we were sort of, the way computers were sort of introduced to us, is that they were like, you give them the same problem, you get the same. They were idempotent. They act the same way every time. That reality just doesn't exist anymore. Okay, so we still have 100% coverage even with that set timeout. And I don't really quite understand why this is running, but because, like, let me see, inspect. Let's go look at our console. And how do I get my if I just hit save, will it run them? Yep. Okay, cool. It seems to. No. Well, it did. See, so that console log never happened. So I don't know why this is running. It doesn't seem like it should be running. App custom layout. Yeah, I don't really get. Oh, it's probably because it's because this fixture detect changes that it ends up running. Yeah, I think if let's try getting rid of that and see if we lose. Yeah, see, we end up losing this code, but then if we add fixture detect changes in there, then the effect runs. And I'm assuming that it runs with 0. The signals are just empty. And that is good. And I think we are ready for I guess we need to sort of go over the code. Just see if there's anything that just doesn't look like it belongs there. So I think all the tests look good. We had to redo. Why did we have to redo all the tests? Because the whole point of this is to. Oh no! All this did was. That is weird. I think I thought that. Oh, because we renamed them. That's why. There was a naming. Because as we add them in, we're trying to put them. I'm trying to put them in the order they want to be in. That is starting to look like it might be a mistake. Because like once I have like 100 tests, I don't want to be renaming 100 tests. So I'm gonna have to come up with some sort of other naming scheme to try to keep things in order. I don't know. Maybe it'll be like 00. I think 003A will come before 4. Maybe that was. I wonder if Roman numerals is a. No, Roman numerals is definitely not a better way to do that. Anyways, that looks good. Got rid of a bunch of unnecessary styles. Unit tests went away because there was a lot of stuff that was going on in app that's no longer going on in there. Oh yeah, that was one of the things I wanted to do too. Is I wanted to go into app and just start deleting. So do we need animation service? I think if we just click on that. Okay, so animation service is being used there. Renderer service is not being used. So I think what we want to do is kill this. And then I think Cypress is the one we want to have open. And then I think I think it automatically will run the test when I change the code. This would be pretty nice actually if this works. And I think the best one probably would be, I think the new one is probably the best. Like the resize one is nice because it definitely does stuff, but it takes a little bit. And I think we should probably change the wait time inside of viz spacing to like 100 milliseconds. So we're not waiting too long. Yeah, see, that's nice. Okay, so now what I want to be able to do is, this would be nice to be like right there. And then go to app component. And then I don't think I need renderer service anymore. If I did, we should not, that test should fail if I needed it. Did it fail? It seems like it failed. Oh, that's a shame. For some reason we didn't see it. Okay, so visualization service doesn't look like we use, or even ST renderer service doesn't look like we use that one. Maybe it's just, well, I don't know. Let's try it again. Let's see if it just shows up blank again. That's gonna be a shame because I'm really gonna enjoy. I would really have enjoyed watching them. It's so weird. Let's see. I'm trying to get to just a regular browser. Try this. So it is working, but for some reason, so I actually have to come in here and hit this button to get to see it, which is a shame. It seems like it reruns, but you can't see it. I guess, I don't know. It'd be interesting to know why. Okay, so do I need visualization service? I don't think so. And do I need platform service? It doesn't look like it. Oh, yes, I do. UI service. And then what's next? I don't think I need this list of renderers. And historically, I would have like kind of made it a list up on the app that I would pass in through inputs. But like the more and more I use signals, the more I'd rather just use that instead of instead of passing things in through inputs. I liked that. I did. I generally, emotionally, and logically really liked that doing inputs and outputs and all that. But for some reason, it's same with modules. Like I thought, oh, this is stupid. We should never get rid of modules. And then it's just like, man, it's so much better. The other thing I thought was just always going to be a thing for me, and I thought it was one of the dumbest things ever, was this app 4. I liked the directives, the structural directives better, but once I started using this, it was way better to do that. I think that the Angular team basically, they just get to experience thousands of applications, so their experience level is just like every day that goes by that they work on that, they get like 1,000 experience points, and then someone like me might get like 10 experience points because I work on this stuff all the time, and then like someone like that only gets to work on Angular every once in a while, you know, they get like 1/100th of an experience point a day, and so like it probably was very obvious for the Angular team that we needed to get away from the um, structural directives, but like for me, it was not obvious. All right, so we got rid of all that stuff. So I think we can just kill this, right? And that works. And that works, yeah. And then that works. That's one thing I really prefer about Cypress over Jasmine Karma is that like you kill the thing and it just comes back, the browser. This, like, you kill the browser and then it just is done, which is pretty nice. Okay, so app component, we got rid of a bunch of stuff. It's just so much smaller now. Make this, let me let this have like the full size since we're doing this task. And what this will do is it'll let us see both. So we got rid of this and replaced it with this. We got rid of all the styles that were the thing we just got rid of, the markup that we just got rid of, and then we got rid of all the unit tests. And then app component. Oh, so now I have all these imports. I've never really had a bad luck removing imports. Unused imports is just like a very safe behavior. It doesn't ever seem to have a bad outcome. It hasn't always been that way, but it's that way now. All right. So as you can see, we are much, much, much smaller now, which I think is I think it's an improvement. I'm 99% sure that's an improvement. It looks like that's a brand new one, so there's no comparison. This is a brand new one. This is brand new. I don't see any console logs or anything. That's good. It looks like we just added a unit test, and there's no console logs in there. Added a whole bunch of new stuff. We definitely want to get away from this sort of hard-coded stuff, but one step at a time. We added a couple getters. There were no console logs in there. We added some code in this UI service. It looks like we might have a renderer that we're not using. An import, is that right? Is that what that was? No, it's being used. Yeah, I don't know what I thought I saw there. We got a console log. That was good. And visualization service. Ooh, that was the console log we just put in there a second ago. And then we got rid of this set timeout because it doesn't make sense inside of a a service. And I'm wondering if that is like just a standard thing to just always for me, like one of those day-to-day rules, like set timeouts should happen in the component, not in the service. I think it kind of makes sense to always do it in the component anyways, because, like the component is the one that knows you normal not I don't know of any reason. Well, that's not true. I was going to say any kind of promise, anything like that needs a set timeout, but I think the promise is going to be that happens here is behind the scenes, something we don't have any knowledge of, and it happens behind the it happens at the component level. So doing a set timeout in the services does not seem to do any good if you're waiting on DOM elements. But if you're waiting on a promise or something like that, like a promise that has already been fulfilled, then you're going to want to do the set timeout up in the service. But I guess there's some promises behind the scene in the components that we needed to wait to be done. So when we moved it over, it broke things. Okay, so we want to add everything. There's nothing in here we don't want to add. And then we're going to do a git commit. And I had been getting away from this. We're going to add our message, and I'm just going to say video 142 to moves the component into the viz elements into a component. And we're going to do a git push. What? Make sure you have the correct access rights. Git push. That was weird. Get the repository and the. So maybe I'm in a different. Am I in a different directory? That is really weird. That for some reason this directory Git worked in the same exact component. The same exact Git. Oh, Git push. I had two pushes. Okay. So yeah, I had two pushes. I remember anytime anything went wrong on Git, like my heart would just drop. I was just like, oh gosh, it would just scare the crap out of me. I spent a lot of time just reading and learning and studying about Git. And Git is one of those things that I have a very difficult time teaching people because I've never gone through this process of just going through all the different things that Git can do and then talking through it. So a lot of my knowledge that I know about Git is just sort of under the verbal layer, I guess you would call it. So anyways, so that is good. I guess it's time to sort of go back up to 30,000 feet and try to figure out what we're trying to do. So basically we moved that stuff, didn't make any really it broke some stuff, but it didn't give us any like actual new functionality. For some reason this is telling me I have one change, and that was because, I hate it when I do that. So I didn't save it apparently. So I think it's fine for this to go in the next commit. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Since it just removes a set timeout in a console log, it's not going to be very hard to keep in mind. Close others. Let's restore that. Oop, that was not what I wanted to do. Bring this over here. And what are we doing? Okay. What are we trying to do next? So basically we did nothing. It was like Seinfeld, a show about nothing. All we did was like move the behavior. I moved things into, moved the visualizations into that. because what we were trying to get done, am I going to be able to move this? That is just so weird. What we're trying to do is get, let's move this here. We're trying to get it to where I think the end goal right now is that we want to have a way to display these things like vertically. And the reason we want to display them vertically is because we want to be able to put like a button next to it to delete. And the reason we want to do that is because when I get to 16, I want to throw a error up or a warning up that you can't create more than 16 due to browser limitations, and that you can delete one. But you have to have a delete button to delete it, right? So I guess there's this concept called CRUD. It's create, read, update, and delete. So we're to the we've got create done, we've got read done. Now we're to the delete part. So, and typically I have noticed that you typically will do that. Usually the read is the first thing, and then create's the second thing, and then the third thing is delete, and then finally the fourth thing is update. So we need to provide a way to delete things. And so I thought that I didn't really like any of the ideas I came up with trying to work with these things. And the main thing I was thinking of is like, okay, so let's say I want to click on this and delete. Then like, let's say, this is going to highlight and then a modal. But see, now the modal will be covering the one that I'm working on, and I don't want that modal. But if it was in a vertical layout, then I could do it from here. Like I'll be able to click it, and then like the button, and then the modal will come up, and you can still see the thing you're working on over here. So that's what I was thinking. And then so what I want, and I'm just sort of thinking out loud right now, is what I want is to have like a button and have like a be able to say which one of the layouts I'm doing, and this will be custom layout, and then the other will be tabular layout. So I want to have like an app tabular layout, and if you're an at tabular layout, then you see them one way. If you're an app custom layout, you see it another way, and the route changes based on that, and there'll be like a little icon up here that lets you swap back and forth from the two ones. So I guess now that we're at 30,000 feet and we're kind of looking at the different things that need to get done, I guess the next thing that needs to be done is to get the little other icon up here. And then I think the next step after that would be to get the routing working. So basically, you're still seeing the same thing no matter what, but the route changes. And then add the new like logic in here that says based on the route, it'll either show custom layout or the other layout. And then the big question mark on that is going to be that I need to really kind of think about, because I don't really understand it, is do I want to do like, there's like a routing directive that will load a different component based on the route. Do I want to use that? Or do I want to add like logic inside of here, like create a service that monitors the route and monitors route changes and hides and shows based on the route? And I don't really know what the consequences of both of those things are. Like every time I've always just end up inheriting that, so I never really get to decide, oh, I want to use the routing directive. I think it's called router outlet directive. Or, oh, I need to have logic in here that loads. I think one of the huge advantages to the router outlet is then I think it's very, very trivial to get lazy loading of modules or lazy loading of of modules is no longer an accurate way to lazy load the data based on which route is has been loaded. So if you end up with just some enormous application where you end up doing these huge, like each one of the sections is just an enormous amount of code, you can get a massive performance improvement by not loading it, by lazy loading. I don't think that's going to be an issue in this, but it might be. But I don't think so. But I do think, at least my gut is, I want to use the router outlet. But anyways, that's probably the way I'm doing things, where you have to build it out, then get the unit tests working, and then get the end-to-end testing. We may be months away from actually changing things. But I do feel like I don't have any like consternation about any portion of the code, which I will say that I could do a lot more in the last application that I built out last year. But there was like all these, like when I would go back to work on some other section of the code, it would be like this huge relearning, and like, oh man, like all this stuff is broken and I don't understand why this is doing this. And I couldn't really like guess how long things were going to take. Like something that I might think, oh, that's going to take me a month to do, that would take 3 days. And then something that I might be like, oh, I'll have that done at the end of this session, might end up taking a month. This, I definitely feel like I have a better grip on it, but damn, is it moving at a snail's pace. But the side effect is I do think that I'm really getting a much stronger understanding of what's going on. So anyways, that is that. I hope everyone's having a great Monday, May 26th. We are almost to June. And right now it's 71 degrees Fahrenheit outside. So that's one of the coolest temperature-wise May 26th that I ever remember here in Hotlanta. So anyways, happy coding, everybody. Bye.